Hey everyone, this is Mr. Everything, and today I'm going to do about a 1 week, little over a week review, first impressions of the Samsung S95B QD-OLED TV. Now, the first thing I want to say is for this video, I'm going to be more focused on the end user experience, how it is to use the TV, some things I've noticed, some things I'd like to see changed, more than the picture quality. I'm not an expert on picture quality, so I'm not that knowledgeable. There's already a lot of people that have probably already done that. So there's a few questions on my unboxing about like how it worked and how I've liked the TV. And this is one of the few TVs I've had where I really didn't have to do any adjustments. So I'll go ahead and turn it on, and then the first thing I'm going to talk about is just the physical aspect of the TV. Okay, so I just turned the TV on, so I'll get more to the interface here in a moment, but this is how I have this set up. I have this Westinghouse TV stand that I bought at a pawn shop like almost 10 years ago. One of the neat things about it is it rotates, so it's not level either. It's like bent. That's probably why it was so cheap. So I have these rubber riser things to keep this end a little higher. This was actually kind of hard to get mounted due to how thin the profile is here. It's going to be hard to pick this up, but very slim profile, and that causes, due to the majority of this TV, the components beyond the screen are just housed right here. You have limited mounting options, so it does sit a little higher than I'd like, but that actually gives me enough room to put my Series X up here, because normally I had to keep it down here. And the first thing I'll talk about is I actually had to add this on soundbar. I got a compact 20-inch one. It was only $40, and I'll touch on that probably next on why I went with that. The first thing I'll talk about is the audio of the TV, because for me that was kind of like the first, maybe not issue, but the first difficulty that I ran into. For me, I live in an apartment, so I don't like to get too loud. If I want to get louder, I like to use AirPods or headphones. So I like more of a flat response. And one thing I noticed with this TV is it didn't seem like the EQ settings did anything when you adjusted the lower frequencies. I put them the whole way down to nothing, and I didn't hear any difference even when I raised the high frequencies. So to me, it didn't seem like the EQ did anything, and the only sound settings you had was standard and amplified. And amplified, although it kind of raised the treble a little bit, the boomy bass, like I probably needed on at least 30 in a quiet room to audibly hear everything. But even as low as maybe 12 or 13 on the volume, the boom, you could just hear it in other rooms. It was too just low and bass. It just wasn't right at all, and there wasn't any way to get rid of that. I had a 2016 curved Samsung 4K TV, and I remember it had that same problem, or very similar. I remember there was too much bass, but with the EQ I was able to get rid of it. And unfortunately with this TV, as far as I could tell, I couldn't find any adjustments. That EQ didn't work, and there's only that other option for the amplify. So I went ahead and added a soundbar. And again, I got a cheap one, a $40 on Walmart one, but it doesn't have that bass issue. You do have a little bit of bass. It does have a little bit smaller of a sound stage. Again, if that's 20-inch, if I would get a full-size one. But I'm not looking to spend more money when you spend this kind of money to begin with the OLED TV. So I'll probably just deal with that. But that was something I noticed, is it just was too bassy, even just for regular listening. I wasn't even comfortable with it. I like, again, more of a flat response. As far as TV history goes, HD TV, I started with an LG, and I think maybe 2010. So whatever the LG system back then was like. Then I had a Panasonic Plasma, which is probably the closest contender to this. Panasonic Plasmas, at least in 2012, were very traditional. Like, it was almost like a CRT type menu. You just had your names of your settings and then sliders and numbers. There wasn't anything fancy. It wasn't a smart TV. In 2017, I got that 2016 curved Samsung. I really liked the way that, I guess it was Tizen back then, that system worked. In 2020, I got a TCL Roku TV. I'm familiar with Roku. Years ago, I had one. The Roku interface was okay, but I didn't like it that much. I really didn't like how their TV guide worked. And I don't use most of the smart features. With the TV, I have an Apple TV, and I prefer to use that for internet. So with this, I kind of thought going back, I would get some of those Samsung features I liked, but things are a little bit different with this TV. So the home screen, when you hit home, it comes to this. Now, the first thing is there's a huge ad up here. So I'm not sure if you would unplug it from the internet, if that would go away. I'll have to try that. And then there's this sponsored tile. That I can put up, that's not a big deal. But I don't really like that big banner ad up at the top. That's pretty pathetic, especially for a $2,000 TV. And if anything, that makes me less likely to want to do anything that that ad says. And then this is pulled in from the internet, but I don't really need to go down here. Everything, well, I shouldn't say everything, but some of the things I would like are right here. Again, there's apps. Maybe I could see myself using the internet browser since Apple TV doesn't have an internet browser, but also you could just mirror your iPhone or iPad's internet browser to the Apple TV. So I probably won't really use any of these. And then settings are here.
For financial compensation.
And
There's no
go
fee
ahead
unless
and
we win your case.
mute that. And this is where I'm going to start talking about some of the things I noticed. Back when I had that 2016 Samsung, this was more or less how the interface worked. You would have this overlay that would slide up from the bottom, and you could pick your sources, and I didn't keep that TV connected to the internet, but it was basically based off of this. And it worked really nicely. So the TV guide thing is still the same, so that's one thing I like. And this is here, but it's kind of buried away. And so this is still here. I really like the way this works. And also, I'm in the Pittsburgh area, so we have the ATSC 3.0. Which it brings up like that red, as if like it doesn't, it can't pull the information. So I'm not sure if that's on the broadcasts end where they just don't have that formatted yet, or if that's on this TV's tuner's end, which I don't know, because it doesn't really tell you what that red symbol means. But I'll leave that there. So again, I'll pop back home. And if I want to switch to, so I can get the TV through there, and then I can get to my HDMI port for Apple TV. It's pretty neat because of the remote functions with the Apple TV, which kind of saves you from needing to use the Apple TV remote for the most part, but that remote's still a little better. So I can come back out, and then again I can resume the Apple TV, or then I can pop in again to live TV, back to, which in my case I'm using an antenna, and then back to this. But this TV has more HDMI inputs. I have 3 more. As far as I know, to get to just the source list, you have to go into here, and then you can get to it. But there's also this game tab, and this is where my other 2, I have a Series X and a PS5, and they're in here, so it's kind of a little finicky. I don't know why you can't, see, I press and hold this. I can move it, but it only moves it within this little tab here. I'm not sure why I couldn't have it just on my home page right here, which would be preferable to me. You can customize your app list, and then that HDMI for my Apple TV shows up in the media tab along with the live TV. But then I have to go over to game, and you can't just right click over. So you have to go to it, select it, and then it puts you up here, which is really dumb. Why would that continue to, like maybe the first time you go into this tab you would need that. So you have to go down there, go to this, and then it puts you here. Then you have to bring it over to this. So again, for a $2,000 smart TV, that's really, really redundant. It should all be like, traditionally if you would have an input or a source button, it would bring them up, you'd pick it. And that is here, but you have to go down here. This is your settings. Or you can go here, and then you get what I'm looking for. And then this has everything here. Now there is the workspaces, which I don't really need that. And I think there is a picture-in-picture feature. But I remember when I was first looking at this TV, they said it didn't work with most things. And I tried it once, and like the one, whatever source I was using, it wouldn't allow that in picture-in-picture. So why even have the feature then if it doesn't work? At least for what I was trying to do. So I have no use for that, nor do I have use for the smart things. Or really, I just want it as just a display of a tuner and the ability to get in and out of the apps efficiently. There may be some shortcuts with this remote. I don't use any of these apps, so these are useless, and since you can't reprogram them, they're going unused. Like that brings up Netflix, but I don't use Netflix. So that's for home. And then like with Samsung TVs in the past, if you press the play pause, you get the playback controls. And then this, which would be nice if this was an input, this just brings up your multi-view, which that would again be for that picture-in-picture option, but it's not as simple as bring up the source and do it. This, you have the views, and actually, see, this time it didn't even bring that up, so that's the finickiness of a smart TV, which I don't really go for. And the one shortcut I did find is if you press this to bring up the number tab, if you go up, you can get to settings, and as long as you don't shut the TV off, when you press this again, it'll go back to the settings tab, and then you can go into all settings this way. So let me see, that's one press, another press, and then you get to this. So it's a little bit shy of how a regular remote, when you press settings and you get settings, but that's not awful. But again, for a smart remote, they could have put a few more buttons on there, I think. And this is a feature, I'll just go through this quickly to show the different settings. So I had to turn the brightness down to 40 because it was a little bit too bright for this room. And I guess that's one of the advantages of the QD-OLED panel, is it does get really bright. And I think everything else is left at factory settings. I do have the peak brightness on high. And I think I have all my sources set the same. And again, that equalizer didn't seem to do anything when I had the internal speakers on. So that didn't seem to work. I do have Atmos on, but I don't think my soundbar is Atmos compatible. I do have a headset that's supposed to be Atmos compatible, so I'm not sure if that would work, but I don't really need that. Turned off the feedback sound. Just some game mode settings, which that's easier to access in an actual game mode. One thing, I think Samsung tuners are pretty good, but this one advantage I like with an older LG is you could go in and manually find each station, choose whether to add or delete it, to where this is just an auto program, and it scans through everything. You can say either air for antenna or cable, so you could just pick one of those, but beyond that, it just does an auto scan, and what you get's what you get. So if a station's not coming in or something, you have to rescan and lose everything to get it back. That's kind of unfortunate, but the tuner is pretty good. And again, you get that 3.0 tuner, which I don't even think that the LG C2 has a 3.0 tuner. I think it's just the G series maybe. I did try and use Google Assistant because I have a Google account, but whenever I would talk into it, it never registered anything. I hold the button down, say something, it wouldn't work. I'm not sure. I don't like Amazon Alexa, but I have an Amazon account, so I might try it. And then there's Bixby, which again, I don't have a Samsung account, so I would have to make one. I'm not sure with either of those if I can just say switch to Xbox, press the voice button, say switch to Xbox, and then that would kind of help me since I don't have that ease of getting in and out of stuff. So that's kind of weird that the Google one didn't work. So again, I might have to try Alexa or Bixby. I think you have to have a camera for that gesture thing. And then I did turn the brightness optimization on. I'm not sure if it makes much of a difference. I've been trying it with it both on and off. And you do get these panel. I do use the pixel shift, which is the same thing that my 2012 Panasonic Plasma did. They called it a pixel orbiter. It just takes your like aspect ratio here and then just like shifts it like maybe 1 or 2 or 3 lines of pixels, which is kind of weird because it never gives you a fully centered picture. Like if you're playing a video game with a HUD or something on it, you'll kind of notice that. So I always calibrate the what do you call it, the end zones or whatever for the maximum scale of the display. I always bring those in just a little bit when you have something like this. Now you could shut that off. I'm not sure 100% if I would need it or not, but I'm gonna leave it on for now. And then you have this option to do a pixel refresh, which this TV's brand new, so I don't need to do that. And then not a super feature-rich thing, but this is the same type of menu that the 2016 TV had that I really liked. So I like that. I just wish it was a little bit easier to get into. And with that being said, that was all with this smart remote. And this remote will control my Xbox and my PS5. You couldn't play a game on it, but again, you gotta do all these button presses. So I can start this, and I think it'll turn my Xbox on. I know it'll turn the PlayStation on, but I don't have all the CEC features enabled because I don't like all the time it shutting things on and off. But if I manually go in and tell it to power on, it'll do it that way. With the PlayStation, if I select that input, it'll just automatically turn on, because I think the PlayStation doesn't give you the option to pick whether you want it to do that, to where in the Xbox settings there are some that I can say for it to control the TV but not like shut off with the TV and things like that. So again, this will control, but it's not that good. I like this for when I'm doing updates. So instead of turning my controller on, and then I don't want to manually take the time to shut it off, and it takes like 10 minutes to shut off. I can just do it with the remote, and I'll save a little battery life if I'm just checking to see if there's updates. And then I can go back, but I have to keep pressing back because home won't take you to Xbox home, it takes you to your TV home. So that's not the greatest for that, and I don't think there is an Xbox button. But again, it's no big deal for me. So I bring this up, I go here, but I don't see a option for the you get the these buttons, so you could, if you had to specifically go after one button, but not that big of a deal though. And one other thing, when it's in game mode, which again, since it's a smart TV, it automatically configures your game systems. It actually took a few tries. Like when I first turned on my Apple TV, it recognized it. Then when I turned the TV off, it didn't recognize it and I couldn't control it again. But then if I manually went in to the add source setting and selected that it was an Apple cable box, which then said Apple TV, then it worked. But the Xbox and PlayStation automatically configured themselves. So that's kind of hit or miss. And a few times when I had the Xbox and PlayStation source, they would disappear when I shut it off, and it would just go back to saying HDMI 2 and 3 or whatever they are. And then this three-way splitter, which that's completely separate, but that's what I called it because it's a three-way splitter. That one would go away. And then I don't know, like the next day after I turned it on and off a few more times, it saved this, so now it doesn't go away. Again, that's finicky. It's probably just because it's a smart TV and it had to save it in there somehow. I know it's a lot of complaining, but for $2,000, I just want to show you everything non-panel wise, just everything, how the TV works, how it operates, how I use it, and the few things I'd like to see hopefully change in software updates. So one other feature that you have is when you press the play button when it's in game mode. The reason I'm doing it on the PlayStation is the Xbox isn't in game mode until you start a game, because I think it's called auto low latency mode. That is so if you want to watch a 4K Blu-ray or something, it won't put that in game mode, so you'll get the best quality visual settings. But then if you start a game, it'll go into it, to where I think PlayStation's just always in game mode. I could be wrong on that, but when you're in game mode, you press and hold that play button, and you get your frames per second. It'll tell you if HDR is on, and it'll tell you if VRR is on. And it is a live counter with your FPS. So when VRR is on, you can see that your frame rate's dipping or something, and you kind of know. But VRR can be off too, and then if your frame rate's dipping, then you're probably going to be more affected by that. Now, I think the input lag setting is grayed out on the Xbox, so it must just automatically have it set, because Samsung and Microsoft seem to be pretty buddy-buddy with how they set their stuff up. They work together. So this one, you get some options. I don't change the game picture mode. I haven't really played with it that much. And then you get game settings, which you can also just get into the regular menu and do that like I did earlier. So on off, I'll leave it on auto. And then I don't want clear motion, and I'm not sure if either of those would give you a soap opera effect as well. I think I do have those somewhat on for just TV input, but for here I'm keeping them off. And then that's how I have that. Again, maybe someone knows better with which setting I should go with, but I just kept it on basic for now. And then I made sure to turn game HDR on, because I don't think HDR is on unless you turn that on, which is kind of weird that it'd be buried in there like that. But if you want that FPS counter, again, unless there's some type of button sequence you can do to bring up some little info box, you would have to keep this whole overlay on while you're playing, which is pretty ridiculous. So unless you're just testing a game, you wouldn't want to play it like that. So then you have to back out to close this. And then you also get that thing again that, like, I don't know why that pops up every single time you leave that mode. That's also kind of an oversight, you know, the first time you do it, but I don't know why it does it every time. That's annoying. And the last thing I'll say is all of the issues I had with sources and everything was because of this smart remote. And it is a pretty nice remote. It's well built, and it has a rechargeable battery built in with a solar charger. Just face it up, it'll keep it topped off, and there is a C port. But this remote I actually again bought with my 2016 Samsung because I didn't like the smart remote it had. So this one, look how simple this is. The star button is your info button. So when you're on DTV, instead of pressing and holding, it'll just bring up the info. This is a quick settings button. So this one's infrared, so you have to aim it at the TV. For the other one's probably Bluetooth. But this one brings you directly into that setting, which is cool. And then you have the number pad, which that's not a big deal. Let's see, so home works too. But again, you'd have to go, I'm in the game tab, so then I have to go back to media, and I guess because it's in game mode and switching off HDR, all TVs do that. But that's another thing, you don't get an HDR indicator up here like most TVs will tell you if it's coming in and out of HDR. This one doesn't let you know that. Now again, you could press and hold that play button for the game menu, and that'll tell you if you're in HDR, but that's only for a video game source input. So I'm back into game, and if I do it this way and just press this input button, look, it pops right up. This is exactly how the old version of Tizen worked, where you had an input button and it would just bring up your inputs. Now this one, if you press it, it'll cycle through them, or you can just pick, and this is so much easier. So Xbox, PlayStation, and this does switch pretty quick. So the processor's pretty good. There's honestly more delay in going through how their menu is. We have to keep pressing all those buttons to get to where you want to go. If you cheat with a different remote, it's actually pretty good. So you can see. And then it always takes me back to my channel 4. I don't know why, it always defaults to 4. That's again, like, must be a smart TV thing, like old TVs. You just kept them on a channel and they stayed there forever unless you manually change the channel. So I don't know about that. But I'll just leave it here for now. Now they do make a newer version of this remote that has a little more stuff built into it for Samsung TVs. It's my local Walmart has it. But with this one, I can't control my Xbox. You can program it to do Apple TV, but then you'd have to select it up here. To where this one, since it's a smart remote, when you switch to that source, it'll control it if it has that CEC or whatever the smart link through HDMI setting is. Now, I don't know why they couldn't make this remote to at least have a quick settings button. Again, instead of having to use this one and then go to all settings through here. And I'm not sure why they put this multi-view instead of a source button, or they could have added both. I mean, they could have had one more little button on there compared to this one. It works as it should. And then you could, if you wanted to, go to the multi-view, which again, I don't even use it. I don't need picture-in-picture. But for this video, I know it's a lot of rambling, but I kind of wanted this to be just a cover-all video. Sound quality, again, I had to add a 2.0 soundbar. The operating system, it's pretty good. One thing I didn't like with the Roku is it took forever to change, like channel 2, then through the substations, then to channel 4 through the substations. It would take a few seconds for each station to load. It's much quicker with this TV. As you can see, it did go in and out of the sources pretty quickly. And remember, some of these, like from live TV to Xbox or live TV to Apple, it's going in and out of HDR as well. So that was pretty quick, you know, when you count for a couple seconds to change out of HDR and do that. And speaking of HDR, you have HDR10 and HDR10 Plus, and then I think HLG, but there is no Dolby Vision on this one. I'm sure this TV would be capable of it. I would assume it's just a licensing thing. They didn't want to pay it, but for this price, it probably should have been included. And I kind of wish it was, but I can live without it. Most things I watch, Apple TV, there's some of their movies are also in Dolby Vision, but I do believe if they're in Dolby Vision, they're also backward compatible with HDR10. And I thought when I last researched this, which was a while ago, that they said HDR10 Plus was about on par with Dolby Vision. And I think even they said in some regards it might have had some advantages compared to Dolby Vision. So I guess I'll let like a true uh, picture quality expert, define that, whether HDR10 plus is comparable to Dolby Vision, or if it would have just been probably ideal for the price point to include them both. Because again, my $500 TCL 6 series TV I just replaced did have both, but how capable it was at displaying a accurate and vivid Dolby Vision image, I'm not sure. So I'm sure the HDR on this, being an OLED, is going to be much better. So you take into effect, to me, questionable speaker quality. If you like that booming sound though, it might be okay. Again, lack of Dolby Vision, but you do get 120 hertz. You do get VRR out of the box. Some Sony TVs, I think they just implemented the VRR, but I don't know if every single TV offers the VR, like their new QD-OLEDs. I don't know anything about them. I'm hoping they have the VRR out of the box and it won't come later as an update like the old ones did, but I don't know. This one was out of the box. Again, the menus work pretty good, but I don't like the remote interface that makes it several button presses and kind of adds that delay to where like a cheap $8 universal remote has all the buttons you would want, and this TV can understand them. So it just seems weird that you have to buy a cheaper additional remote to get kind of the best experience you can in terms of getting in and out of sources and settings very quickly. And then some people might say, well, it's easier to maybe hook up your Samsung phone to it or use a voice assistant, but I don't have a Samsung phone. I don't want to install an app on my iPhone. And the one voice assistant I tried didn't work. So, what's the deal there? Now, at least back in the day, they had those Logitech Harmony remotes that they were smart remotes. They did a whole lot. They were pretty neat. And people these days probably don't want them, so you could probably find a deal. I'm sure those would probably be kind of comparable to what this one was capable of. But that's really about all I think I can touch on in this. The TV picture is perfect. Again, I lowered the brightness a little bit, but I didn't touch anything else. That's basically the only TV I've had to do this with. I think my Panasonic Plasma, I don't think I messed with it too much. For me, I usually would set my TVs to cool because warm looked too yellow, and Plasmas had perfect. You just left them the way it was because they were warm, but they weren't yellow warm, and cool looked too cool. OLED, at least this one, is the same deal. I just keep it on normal, cool, though I still kind of prefer that bluish look. The regular normal on OLED is very natural, and then the warm again is a little too warm. So this one actually hits the normal just right, at least for how I like it. So I didn't have to adjust anything else. Beyond that though, I'm very happy. The pictures always looked good. The fact, again, I didn't have to really fine tune anything. Everything looked good out of the box. You hook up your input, it's supposed to smart detect it, and then once it seems to sync it and stay that way and it doesn't lose what that setting or that input was and then have to refine it and go through that again. Once it got rid of that, which I don't know again why it did that out of the box, but now I go into it, it immediately recognizes it. I can start using the smart remote, but I can either pick between using this and being able to control everything over HDMI, or lose that feature, but I can get in and out of sources and stuff quicker. So I figured I would just leave that there. That's mostly the pros and cons of this. There were a few cons. I only get this picky since it's $2,000. I want you to kind of know everything that I can possibly tell you about this TV. I've had it for just slightly over a week. Build quality is great. I didn't have any bends or anything. I was able to pick the TV up by myself on the sides, and not crack it. So it did hold up pretty good there. And as I continue to use the TV, maybe in a month or so, I'll come back with just a more streamlined review. It's like everything's been working good. The picture still looks great. I watched some movies and played some games and didn't notice any frame dips, or the HDR looks great. Or I'll probably do that in the future and then say whether I notice any problems, or if I get one thing I see, maybe there's some type of button sequence you can press to quick bring up those source menus, or someone knows more about this TV than I do. I'd like to know. But for $2,000, I kind of want the remote to be perfect and do everything I want. And I kind of want the interface, though I like it, to be a little quicker, and I would love to not see that annoying ad right on the home screen. So I'll leave it there. I'll probably have to timestamp this video. If there's any other questions or any input, I'll like to hear it. But I'm going to enjoy the TV in the meantime, probably come back again in a little while for a more just streamlined review and month update. So thanks for watching, and you'll see me in the next one. Have a good one.